people are probably aware of like, oh, I think I'm a visual person, but I'm not sure that everyone jumps to the conclusion of like, oh, that means I should study visually. Like it doesn't just carry out into our strategies. It might just be like this knowledge that we have and that we don't do anything about. So I think reminders of like, hey, maybe you should try this, or like you were saying, exposing students or kids to all these different things, really become a problem solver. Say, well, this didn't work. What else is available? What other options are there? And I think that's maybe the most important skill, is like testing, like learning to test all these different things out.
Hey there, welcome to the Gluten-Free Organic Thoughts podcast, where you are encouraged to express your natural thoughts and views through casual, meaningful conversations that hopefully can lead to learning and understanding new perspectives. To find out more info, visit www.gfOThoughts.com. Now, here are your hosts, Michael Wong and Robert Din. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another great episode of Gluten-Free Organic Thought Podcast. My name is Michael, and my co-host always with me, Robert Dan.
Welcome back, everyone. We got a new guest on today, Miss Corinne, Dr. Corinne, that we have over here.
Dr. Corinne Novell.
Yeah, and so today we're gonna be talking about learning styles and see like actually from someone who teaches people like what how people learn and we watched a video earlier, so we're gonna dive into that a little bit. But before we start, what are we drinking, guys? Corinne, what are you drinking?
Yeah, what are you drinking?
All right, so I just finished my morning coffee because it's 10 a.m. local time, so I can't start without coffee. So it's just boring water, but it's in my friend's Tokyo mug from Starbucks. So.
I mean, so wait, not cup number 2 coffee?
Why? No, I only do one a day.
One a day?
One a day.
That's very little.
One a day.
I know.
That's your limit.
It's all I need, though.
You don't do any more.
This is the thing. With a good night of rest, you just need 1 cup of coffee.
That's true. That's normal, right? That's a normal way.
For every hour of sleep lost, you probably need an additional cup of coffee. So just water right now.
Oh, interesting.
All right.
That's how the other side lives. I drink coffee for taste, so I just drink it all day. Like I have no.
I love the taste of coffee too, so I can't argue about that. Yeah. So what are you drinking
today? I am drinking. I found this Domaine Lingo Martine.
Nice.
It's a sparkling rosé.
Nice.
Really pretty.
Yeah.
Wait, you haven't opened it yet? You're gonna pop a new bottle?
Oh no, it's open. Or I just opened it. It's a nice color too. Look at this color.
It is a pretty color.
Gorgeous.
Nice. Is it very sweet, very dry?
I don't know. We're gonna taste right now.
Taste test. There we go.
Oh, it's on the sweeter side.
Oh, nice. That's good.
But it's not too. It's not too sweet. It's good.
Send me a bottle, okay?
Send you a bottle. This is the only one I have.
I know. I want to try that.
Let me cork this up and send it over to you guys.
All right. So I am drinking dirty matcha. I'm not sure you can see it.
Yeah, put it in front of your face. I think.
There you go. From my face. There you go.
In front of your face.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. So it's kind of dirty. You can tell. You see a little bit of greenish behind it. So it's matcha with oat milk with a shot of espresso in it. So for those who haven't had that yet, we call it dirty matcha. So
matcha oat milk.
Sounds delicious.
It tastes matcha-ish with a shot of espresso. That's what it tastes like. I don't know how to explain that. And if you add honey to it, it makes it a lot better.
So, yeah. That's like one of those power drinks, right?
Well, this is my morning coffee for me. So I'm still on my first cup, just like you. But I drink usually about 2 to 3 cups throughout the day. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I still have my cut up at 7 p.m. though. So, but it's late. Yeah, most not normal people. So. All right. For those who are, trying to get us just tuning in right now, today's episode we are discussing about teaching style and how it correlates to the different learning capabilities. The question we're trying to answer today is that, do we adjust the different teaching style just to kind of cater to the different learning capabilities? And in order to kind of answer this question, obviously we probably won't get through a lot of as much detail as we can, but it's more about approaching understanding what are the different teaching style and then what are the different capabilities of. And so we have our guest on today, Dr. Corinne Novell, with a background of social psychology and marketing. And so she's been teaching this for quite a bit. She's done research on top of that too. So she's definitely had a little bit more expertise than we do. So we just coming from the learner side, So
I've taught for a long time, but honestly, one of the biggest things is you never stop learning, even when you're a professor. You constantly have to adapt. So I'd love to say I've mastered it, but everything is always evolving. So I'm going to need to continue adapting as I go and growing as a teacher. So,
and that's a growing mindset to have, though. That's good to have, for a professor. So most people, when they get to a certain stature, they tend to eventually become a fixed mindset. And I've seen that, just because I've encountered different professors as well. And you can kind of tell sometimes. So, but then again, not many people, sometimes are even aware of that, to be honest, either. So,
right.
All right. So, Corinne, tell us a little bit about yourself for those who has not met you yet.
Yeah. So you guys covered some of the points, but my background, is in social psychology. I got my PhD and master's in social psychology. A lot of that was like methodology, kind of understanding how to run research and everything. And also statistics and all that good stuff. But I started to do some kind of consumer behavior related research in grad school, figuring out how people respond to different ads and what effect and impact these ads have on people's kind of intentions and behavior. So I realized I was really kind of interested in that. And I was studying, actually, it's funny that you mentioned a fixed mindset, because I study fixed and growth mindsets and what impact those have. In a lot of different kind of domains like education, also in consumer preferences, and also in sales. So I really started to expand kind of the different disciplines and domains that might be affected by mindsets. And that really brought me into sales and marketing research. So then I ended up doing a postdoc in sales and marketing, started teaching sales. I have a little bit of a sales background as well. And now I'm in, consumer behavior and marketing. So it's really been kind of a lovely kind of journey.
Well, it sounds like
interdisciplinary.
It kind of helps with both sides. So that's why it sounds like kind of all intertwined eventually.
What was that? Sorry.
It kind of intertwined eventually, like
they all kind of, the roads kind of converged in a nice way, but yeah, so that's one of the nice things I've gotten to kind of become familiar with a lot of different disciplines and realize that a lot of the things in one discipline just is renamed in a different discipline. They actually are quite related. There's like, oh well, there's that
marketing is expense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you this: do you prefer research or teaching? I'm so curious.
Oh, that's a really great question. I don't know if I could ever give up either. Really? It really is. Both of them appeal to me so much. I feel like in terms of like what drives me, I have two like big motivations. One is, and this is kind of the research side, I was always an inquisitive kid. Like my mom even bought me this book called The Big Book of Questions and Answers, because I was always like curious about things. And I think maybe she thought that book would answer all of my questions, but it didn't. I think it fueled my, lifelong journey towards research, wanting to try to understand phenomena and kind of understand how people behave and why. And the funny thing is that although research gets us towards some of those answers, we have this funny phrase in research. If somebody says, what happens if blah, 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 we're like, well, it depends. The answer is always it depends, because there's going to be some other situation where people behave differently. So we try to approximate, how people are going to respond, but it always depends. So my curiosity really kind of drives me to do research. But my other big motivation is helping people and just like trying to have a positive impact on people. And so that really drives me to want to interact and not only teach, but have, a lot of interaction with students.
Gotcha.
Is so rewarding. And to have one without the other, I don't know. I think it's kind of perfect to be able to
see that. I mean, my little experience with teaching compared to just nothing, but I used to tutor. And one of the things is that just seeing some instant results is kind of nice, especially after a semester of reward. You can see their faces, their kind of priceless reaction to that. So imagine, you, especially you have, you probably see those kids, for the longer period of time. And then at the end of it, you see their growth. So, and it's probably rewarding, very rewarding.
And sometimes it's not even instant. Like sometimes the students won't know that they learned something or it won't be relevant until a little bit later. I'll get emails from students. Hey, professor, I just want to let you know, like this scenario came up at work and I applied what we were talking about in class. I'm like, touches my heart.
Okay, side note though. Has a student in the past reached out to you, say, hey, thanks, professor, I'm rich now because of you?
I'm rich now because of you.
Not yet. Not directly anyway.
Okay.
I'd love to think that I have, increased their salary threefold, but
there we go.
Oh, threefold. Wow. I need to go to
These
your
are
class.
metrics that we don't look at.
Okay.
I'm gonna sign up for one of your classes right away. 3x, man.
No, but it is interesting. Yeah. I try to be accessible to my students outside of class.
Yeah.
There's the, in person, in the classroom instruction. And then there's I always tell my students, hey, I want to be a resource for you guys. I want to help you guys develop professionally. If you're preparing for a job interview, let me know. I want to help. And because you never know what one phrase that you say might have a positive impact.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I totally get that.
So,
I totally get that. When I've gone to interviews, I know when it's good or bad based on like probably one thing I've said throughout the interview. And I'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have said this. And then that's in my head. I'm like, that's where it all went downhill from there. So usually I'll know just the one thing.
So Corinne, let me ask you one question on this. So now, one of the things that you study social psychology in a sense, right? You watch people, and do you watch your students like that too? Also, I'm just curious. They study them a little bit.
Oh gosh,
take the research. I'm just curious.
They would be like horrified if they were watching this, like, oh my gosh, she's watching us. No, but you get a feel for people just in the level of formality with which they interact, with you. How just. It's palpable. You can feel energy. Yeah. You can feel a personality.
Yep.
How talkative, people, are not just individual students, but an entire class. Each class has a personality on top of that.
Makes sense though, because each group could vary. Also depends. The energies could be different from morning to afternoon, like you said.
Yep.
So,
I always avoid lunchtime classes because students are just thinking about food the entire time. So like you have to be, strategic in that sense of figuring out when people are going to be most receptive to of the learning experience. And so for me, I've found that certain times of day can lend towards, different kind of learning environments. Yep. So you learn these things over time. It really is like quite a multivariate kind of experience, but yeah, you can feel it and you adapt accordingly. So not even like in an formal assessment or like analysis, like, oh, this is this way. It's just you feel it and you adapt.
So we'll dive into the learning experience a little bit. So jumping back into your teaching background, right? So from the start to now, obviously you probably have grown tenfold, saying you probably have adjusted your teaching style, right? Have you found a specific teaching style that works for you better, or you had to adjust depending on the class or the group?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, really.
Yeah, it is.
I've adjusted my teaching style not only just because I've grown as a professor and understood a little bit more about what could be effective in terms of making information stick, making knowledge stick, but I've literally been teaching students for a decade now.
Okay.
I have switched from predominantly millennial students to predominantly Gen Z students. They are different. Yeah. The type of class I'm teaching has changed. Yeah. Whether it's beginning or advanced level courses has changed. And so you always have to be very cognizant of what maps on well to the level and degree that you've been doing. But I have really incorporated much more of a multimodal kind of learning approach to kind of try to reach as many students as possible, for sure.
Nice.
When you say like different levels change, you're saying like you'll teach the same subject, but it'll be considered a different level for different generations?
Oh, different. Thanks for asking. So when I say it might be an introductory course. which is where you're doing kind of a broad overview of a lot of different things, but you don't always go into, you know, a ton of detail. If it's a more advanced class, I've taught graduate level classes, like in consumer behavior, we're mostly reading research articles and picking these apart. So you really dive deep. You are
you're just saying that the courses you're teaching are on different levels. I thought they're like, within the 10 years, we went from, learning 1 + 1 is in this level. Now it's in a different level. Okay.
And it also varies on, I guess, what year the student is in, right? Like you said, intro class, you may be teaching just freshmen and sophomore versus a grad class. These people are a little bit more mature. They'll probably have more background. So their learning ability is probably different. So, you know, sticking to the teaching conversation, did you have like a favorite teacher in high school and college that kind of influenced you to where you are today?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, I've had some really wonderful teachers too. It's funny because I was thinking recently about teachers who have had a positive influence. And one thing about me is I'm mixed dominant with my hands. And I'm very split. When I say split brain, equally left and right brained in terms of kind of my.
I wish I was like that.
I know, right?
My left hand sucks.
So I can be incredibly technical and very logical and just like very, you know, kind of technically oriented, or I'll be, on the other hand, very creative. So my two favorite teachers from high school, one, it was super methodical, very practical. Like we learned practice makes perfect. She was my calculus teacher. She was just super serious. And I just learned, like, put your head down, get the work done, master it. And then my other favorite teacher in high school was the complete opposite. It was my physics teacher. And he was all about experiential stuff. He would have debates in the class about what should happen under certain, you know, circumstances. And we would have to do applied projects of, like, you know, not just learning about physics, but putting it into motion.
So you actually feel it actually based on experience, you probably learn better, to be honest, sometimes.
So so one of the examples is in class, and I actually did this. I was one of the volunteers. You know, that like idea about pulling the tablecloth from a table with where it's fully set with like fine china can be done. I did it in class. I was terrified.
You have a video on that? I mean,
this is like forever ago before anything was documented.
Hey, I have a video.
But now you could do it again, right? Now that
you can do it again. Like,
that'll be the next podcast.
Well, she knows the physics behind it, you know? That's probably why. So she knows the physics. So it's physics, right?
It's physics, exactly. I just have to remind myself of like the angle and, you know, but it's all about confidence there. You do not do it with any hesitation every single time. So that was really fun, getting to do like really different sides of things. And then I had some really wonderful instructors in college as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can vividly remember one of my favorite teachers in high school that influenced me to do engineering because of that physical touching aspect of that. I was good at chemistry. I hated it, but I was really good at it. I just kept pursuing that. But then that same teacher taught physics. And just because we did a lot of experiments, like building bridges, building stuff like that here and there, like you actually, you know, you calculate it, you could, you know, once you calculate it, you can estimate based on what you build, you can actually, you know, kind of gauge of how much weight you should hold, little things like that, kind of, you applied it. And so and also got kids excited because you see things. So for me, I feel like that, you know, kind of led me to an engineering path and became a more analytical things in a sense. And that was actually one of the subjects that I ended up becoming a TA for, just because I feel like that if that made an impact to me, hopefully I can give that back to kids also in my, you know, in high school at the same time, because I feel like if I can make one kid a difference just to turn, you know, kind of get them engaged, because a lot of, especially nowadays, like it's hard to get kids engaged, just especially younger kids. So
I think you're touching on a really important point, is just the involvement. And we'll probably get into this more about individual learning styles, but maybe it's more about just involving people to make it kind of personally relevant, I think is always going to kind of improve learning. But it's getting harder. Attention spans get shorter with technology and everything. So it's a different challenge than it was a decade or two ago.
Yeah, for sure. Robert, did you have a favorite teacher though? I'm just wondering.
My favorite teacher was my math teacher in high school.
Why math?
I was in like a competition maths class, right? So like I wasn't even the best student in this class, which is usually in high school, like usually in the high school classes, as I was like, up until that point, I was pretty much the best student. But then I moved to a new school. They had like this competition math class, and I learned so much. And like I guess,
the challenge of it.
the challenge of it, like and like pushing. Like I think I learned so much more because we were pushed, in to learn so quickly, and we had to go to competitions and stuff. So if you didn't learn, then you wouldn't do well. And it just, I don't know, the way he taught us was fun, and it at the same time it was like pushing you forward. So it was, I don't know, I feel like I learned a lot in that class, and
it sounds like you had to apply it. That's what it sounds like. The competition's applying it, right? So you learned it, you applied it.
Also, yeah, so that class is like it's a competition class, so like all the things that we're learning gets applied immediately when you go to competitions, right? So it's
what was the competition format like?
So they had a few different ways where like they would give us all the same test, right? And we would have an hour to complete as many questions as we could. And then it would be based on like how many we got right and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't verbal. It wasn't
no. It was
not one of those things that you see on TV.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Like a lot of it was just like, all right, we're gonna give you this test, and then there was multiple rounds. So like it would be the first round, and there's like team rounds versus like individuals. So yeah, it was it was interesting.
Gotcha. So you like the challenge of this. That's what it sounds like, because you went from first to last and now to new class, right? So that you're not the best.
Well, I don't know about last, because I still went to competitions, right? So I just felt
you're like you went from here to
I went from like first to like 10th or something.
All right, 10th. Okay.
And then because I was still in the team, because there was like 30 people in the class, but like only I don't know 15 competed or something. So yeah, it was it was just like I think the application, you're right, like seeing the results once we learned all this stuff, and seeing the results and how our results like get better as we went along, it was cool.
Gotcha.
Mike, do you have a favorite teacher?
Yeah, like I said, my physics professor. So like he was my chemistry, he was my regular physics class, and then he was my AP chemistry and my AP physics. So
and my physics and chemistry.
Yeah, and intro to engineering. This is all in high school, by the way. I literally had him for 3.5 years straight.
That's crazy.
Wow.
You know how you had Dr. Finney, in When We Twirl? He was like my Dr.
He just always shows up.
Mr. Feeney.
That's awesome.
Except he didn't come to college, but still.
Mr. Feeney.
But yeah, no, he's definitely a character. He still looks the same age. I'm friends with him on Facebook. I'm like, man, he hasn't aged a bit at all. So I mean, I guess he started young teaching, and so I mean, he still teaches high school now. I think he's probably higher up now. But yeah, my sister had him. Both of my sisters had him, so they both enjoyed his class and stuff. So like once I remember, obviously side story, but when the first time that my sister had him, he's like, "Oh, you're a Wong, huh, aren't you?" And I know what to expect out of you now.
My teachers all had the same thing, because my sister came 7 years after, and then and then she would always be like, "Oh, you're Robert's sister." Like you're Robert's sister. And she hated it. She's like, "Oh my god."
My sister hated it because I set the expectation so high.
Yeah, mine too. She was just like, "Oh, I just hate like that's what I'm known for, is to be Robert's sister." Even 7 years later, you're not at the school for many years, and still like you get the
my youngest sister's 6 years apart from me, and literally she had the same teacher. So like literally, like he recognized her as so he related to my chance to Michael Wong. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it is funny though. But at the same time, that like I said, his style of teaching was very fun, and interactive, right? But also you can tell, obviously, especially you teach a class of 30 kids, everybody's gonna be receptive, to certain things.
Yeah.
Jumping into that, right? So how pretty much the whole topic of this conversation on the podcast was watching this video, and I want to jump into that video, and we're gonna share this video on our show notes.
There'll be a link in the description.
Yeah, and this video, it's pretty much someone kind of recording people's answer in terms of, kind of do they believe in different learning styles, and if so, what kind of learning style they believe in, and then he does a sample test of different pictures and things like that, and just kind of show them, hey, whether this, kind of get them to memorize stuff differently.
I think the point of it was to prove that there's like a myth on like people's learning styles, right?
Correct.
So like we know like audio, visual, and like what's the other one? Where you like do stuff, right? And
kinesthetic,
kinesthetic, yeah.
So like people would like choose, and like it's like a well-known, everyone just chooses like, oh, I'm this type, I'm this type, I'm this type.
Like everyone can self-identify.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Correct. Everybody can self-identify, and then sometimes it's just not what you are. You think you are that, but not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
And so now let me ask you this, Corinne. So from you watching this video, what pros that you saw this, what cons you saw this video? Because I feel like there's a lot of bias, but also at the same time, there's a little bit of truth to that. So
yeah, it's really interesting. It's not my area of research, so I haven't, read the papers and everything that, fail to support it or whatnot. Like I was saying, I feel like everyone can self-identify as that they're, a visual learner or a, auditory learner. I think that at the end of the day, people have different kind of preferences for sensory input, whether it's, with their eyes or their ears or touch. So I think it kind of depends. I still like, if you tell me just to have auditory, it's really going to be tough for me to hang on to that. I prefer to have a visual as well, but maybe the research hasn't captured it the way that, like, maybe it does have an impact, but the way that the research has been conducted hasn't yet captured routinely the impact that it has. It also might be, I'm thinking like Myers-Briggs, like, I'm ESTJ, I'm super analytical. I like reading and writing.
Yep.
So, I feel like that might map on well, but like maybe we should be looking at Myers-Briggs rather than just the 4 learning styles. So maybe the breakdown's a little bit different. I don't know. I'd have to look at the methodology, like super, nitty gritty.
So, okay, let me ask you a better question. Since you have to have research background, how we have conducted this research? I'm just curious now from your perspective.
It's funny because there has been some research conducted that's similar. There's something called congruence or congruency theory that is this same idea of matching, this whole matching, like things have a greater impact when things align, when they're matched up. There's something called state dependent learning in psychology, where they have people try to memorize a set of, pieces of information within a particular emotional or physical state, like even putting them underwater when they try to learn these things. When they are later,
underwater, like
underwater. Yeah. So it's called state dependent learning. And they basically found that recall for this information is improved or enhanced when people are in that same state. So think about this just even in a classroom. What? Yeah. So just say like on a much like more boring level, if you think about like if a student sits in the front of the classroom all the time, right?
Yeah.
And they're learning, in that kind of particular physical location. And then on test day, someone took their seat and now they're at the back of the room. Like it might actually even have an impact on their performance because they take these cues to have this integrated memory experience and they upload the information into their memory in that way. When they try to unpack it, when they try to recall it, it's best if the conditions are similar. So this idea of matching, with physical or emotional state isn't totally different from the idea of matching learning styles for delivery of, like matching to the student's kind of learning preference. So I don't know.
So you're saying...
So, like we're gonna go back to this underwater thing.
I am totally going back to this underwater. So you're saying if I learn something underwater, it's better if I was underwater to like unpack it.
Yes.
Why say that though? I'm just trying to say how you.
I'm not saying that overall memory is going to be better if you're underwater, but I probably find that above water is better overall. But if you were underwater when you learn this stuff, if you're going to be asked to recall it, you should be under.
Wow! So, oh my god. This is
all right. I'm going to side note this for a second because I was reading this book called Moonwalking with Einstein. Okay. Speaking of memories, okay. And this guy is pretty much goes through this journey of how he can improve his short-term, long-term memory. Okay, and there is a memory competition, and at the end of the year, following this strategy that he asked the best of the best on how different people just memorize a bunch of stuff, like there's competition, people memorize pi digits and whatever it is, so forth, right? And what they do is he unfolds certain strategy, how he builds a house in his head, and he walks into different rooms, how he can connect to stuff, right? But he was learning this under pressure, and then he was able to recall it under pressure a certain way. So he had to learn in a specific environment first, and then he unpacked it when he needed to. So because otherwise during the competition time, he was not able to unpack it the right mindset. And so
same idea.
So he went in and he was like, "Do you have a tank of water? And this is how I need to unpack it."
No,
I am not saying that being underwater improves your memory, but if somehow someone asked you to learn something while you're underwater, then again, that's a really extreme example. It's kind of an older piece of research. I don't know if they've done replication studies to see if that still holds, but at the end of the day, like, how would I conduct this research? I would probably look at a whole lot of other things other than just the 4 kind of learning styles. Just seeing.
You wouldn't box it in. You're saying like into that. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, or like even you were saying about like physics, like, or where some disciplines lend towards interactive material. So maybe it's more matching about like a learning style with a particular discipline.
Yeah.
Or even left brain versus right brain, like you're super analytical, you can have a lot more detail. So I believe that there are different styles, but I'm not sure if that's the exact breakdown that I would use to test it. So as a researcher, you would probably look at lots of different breakdowns, or like, Myers-Briggs or something like that, to see whether they map on to performance with certain kind of content delivery.
Yeah, it's probably better. Like there's probably more that goes into it, but I feel like this 4 learning styles thing it was just something that was very easy to identify for everybody. So then it just so everyone could just like see it, and they all like immediately understand how it breaks down, and then they could self-identify. So I think that's why I picked up a lot of steam, and like that's where like Myers-Briggs, like there's a bunch of different letters, like who's gonna remember what all of them are, right? So that's
one of the unfortunate things. Oh, like talking about ranting, I don't know if I should say this for a rant, but so many like assessments are so poorly written. Like one of the things that like I've been trained to do in grad school, or pretty much anyone who's been through that type of program would be trained to do, is how to write good questions. And I constantly get frustrated when I'm taking like one of those assessments. I'm like, this isn't even written correctly. Like, I don't know how to answer this question. And so it's going to affect the validity of these things. But most people gravitate towards things that are easy to talk about, like you were saying, Robert, like, oh, it's easy, one of these 4, right? It's far more complicated to say, oh, I'm one of these 16, and what are the nuances? Like, that's not going to jive with the majority of the population. So there's a skew like towards like things that become popular, even if they don't really hold, because they're easier to talk about.
But also the 16 is just a bunch of letters, whereas like if they had like named each of the 16, maybe we could like identify with them easier, right?
Like Hufflepuff.
Exactly. I'm a Slytherin. That's it.
There we go. It's very descriptive though, if you think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So actually, Corinne, you actually brought up a good point. Asking the right question is actually a key. It's actually one of the main key aspects of research, right? Because what are you asking matters, and how you ask it matters so much. So going back to my original question, I guess in a sense, like if you were the person who's trying to kind of debunk learning styles, I guess you could somewhat, whatever it is, how will you ask these questions now? I'm just curious, like from your perspective.
So like where they were asking people on the street.
Yeah. So obviously, okay, let's start with the environment, right? They were asking random people on the streets, and because it's like you can't control the demographic, you can't control whoever walks down there, right?
Yeah.
And also, not only,
field research is really tough. Like if they were actually using that data, like, on the street, collect, oh my gosh, like so much noise. We call that noise, different variables. We saw people being interviewed in groups. No, it all needs to be consistent. You need to remove as much of that noise as possible. So you need to make sure that you have a script that you stick to for every single person. Do not deviate. You need to make sure that they get the same exact experience. So, you like in terms of what the surrounding environment is. So field research is really messy a lot of times. So you have to like kind of employ different techniques. So if I was doing it, I would be doing it in the lab, first of all, to kind of control for a lot of this stuff. And then, figure that out.
And then you would build a tent outside the street, tell them to come into my tent. Like, that's
well, but then there's a selection bias, like who is willing to do that? That might be a certain type of person.
Right.
So a lot of times you try to like employ lots of different methods to try to get, or if you like, if there's a research requirement, then you have to do this. And then you kind of control for the type of person, those who are willing to take a survey versus unwilling to take a survey. So there's always going to be some type of sampling bias, which can affect the results.
Wait,
so it's just hard.
If there's a bias on like people who will take a survey versus not, then wouldn't your people that you're bringing into a lab also have that same bias?
Well, so again, if there's like a lot of research is done at universities, and there's like an undergraduate research requirement, that means that if you're taking a certain classes, you have to participate in the research.
Oh, so you're stuck with it no matter what.
You're doing it like against what?
So you're forcing people against their will.
No, it's always, it is always, you always allow an out. If somebody feels uncomfortable, they do not have to do all researchers are trained to abide by certain ethical, guidelines. Nobody is forcing anyone to complete research. There are always alternatives. So, there's
Robert, imagine your job to do that. Sorry, you're working here. You got to take the survey. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, you have to take this survey. If you don't take this survey, you're fired.
You don't. That's it. No, you don't get a raise. You don't get a raise, right? So.
I mean, I think fired would force them to do it more.
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk to my people at work.
Like we literally have to have like training, like every 2 years or so to make sure that we are up on what is okay, what is not okay.
Gotcha.
And so that's it's super strict actually.
So you brought up the bias situation, right? I do see the bias, especially watching this video, because at the end of the day, they can show in this video who they interview, whoever they want, whatever result they wanted. We don't know the actual true sample size that and we don't know actually how the different type of people they interview either, right?
And it's a YouTube video, right? So they're getting the people that would make the most impact on the video to be visually watchable, right?
Or whatever the result they wanted to get out of that.
That's true.
Yeah. Right.
Also, you're gonna, as part of that sampling bias, there's something called the Big Five inventory, and those people are probably more extroverted, like because they were willing, and more agreeable because they were willing to do this. So I think that again, there's going to be certain personality characteristics that were overrepresented in that.
So what is this Big Five? Sorry, say that again. The Big Five.
The Big Five. So it's like whether you are extroverted or introverted, are you conscientious or not? Are you conscious? Like conscientious?
Oh, conscientious.
They're all conscious, but are they conscious?
I hope so.
Yeah, we're getting back into the forcing people to take this again.
You're sleeping. You're not.
Yeah. No. So how would you? Do you get the people? I guess how would you know certain people are fall into those Big Five, and how you collect enough data to make sure this?
There's scales for all this stuff. You just have to put it in the research. Like so, you could then look for differences. People who are high on extroversion versus low on extroversion, and things like that.
Sorry, hang on. I guess my lights like 10 to go off.
Oh, I thought you were stretching. I was like, yeah, it's a good time for a stretch.
Mike's done. His office told him it's time's up.
All right. So now that branching off from this video, right? We noticed from your personal experience teaching and stuff. Tell me, I guess, how have you seen your students learning? Because obviously you mentioned early in this conversation, you said, hey, each classroom has its own characteristic, its personality. That means each classroom probably has different learning styles too, to be honest too.
Yeah. So yeah, whether it's formally documented, people at the very least have different personalities.
Yep.
Even if it's not different learning styles. So at the end of the day, you have to be attuned to these differences and kind of adapt.
Yep.
But like some students are still like love to read, and they're very like, you can tell that they've read the textbook, but definitely not everybody does. And
I never read the textbook.
Guilty of that.
Did you guys read the textbook?
Of course not. That's why I became an engineering major.
Yeah. They give you questions,
awesome.
you do the questions. The questions give me all the answers I need.
Yeah. But especially over time with technology, like more and more, it's like, well, you need to have a video. Like they need to hear somebody else talking about this. They can't just listen to the same person over and over and over. Even if they agree with what you're saying or learning a lot, it's good to have variety. So variety of medium, just keep things fresh. Because attention spans, like I said, have gotten shorter due to nobody's fault. It's just technology, and it has lent toward that. And so you need to keep things as fresh as possible. And so I try to involve, like kind of group, like mini kind of assignments or discussions during class, report back to the class. So it gives them a lot of different ways to interact with the material. And hopefully there's something for everybody within that.
Gotcha.
One question I have, like this is off topic, but like, so like when you do group assignments, there's always going to be those people that you're pulling along with you on your, in the group, right? There's going to be people who are doing stuff, people not doing. Do you as a teacher see that, or is it just like, oh, the group completed it, I know that the group completed it?
So I try to like do check-ins with the groups. I try to say like, hey, where are you at with the project? What areas are you kind of having trouble with? So I try to like do some assessment. Most of the time they're doing things as a group, and then they'll have the kind of the individual performance of like, if they like, when it comes time to doing an oral presentation, about it, everyone will have the role. You can see how comfortable kind of some students feel
talking
or
about
not
the subject, I guess that's
true. But even like within class, like just mini kind of discussions, or like, hey, think about this, come up with a couple of examples. Those might be like 5 or 10 minute activities. Usually like students have good enthusiasm, everyone's contributing. So I think a lot of groups don't always go well, but isn't being an adult just a series of group projects? I feel like
especially at work. I feel like at work, I agree, especially at work, it's like all group projects,
It's all group projects. So if you don't like them in college, sorry, there more are coming.
No, and there's always that, and in every group, there's always like 1 or 2 people where you're like, these guys aren't doing anything. So it's that type of mentality a lot of the time.
Well, okay, so now that you mentioned the different, I guess personalities and how they tie to certain, I guess, people, the way they learn. Also, like you said, mentioned, right, bringing different perspective makes a whole lot of sense. It's like us not listening to our parents, but then we listen to our neighbors' parents, and they say the same exact thing, but we pay attention to that because probably how they said it was probably different.
Yeah.
So, and listening the same way, sometimes they may not, and this is why you probably bring guest lecturers, stuff like that, just because not only they can apply to it, and they probably bring experience, and it's a different voice. So I wish that, I guess, I'm wondering, is this why a lot of college professors play videos? I guess when they I was like, why would they show so much video? I could watch this on YouTube, or or even in high school, right? Some professors just show videos.
Well, it's a fine balance, right? And as I just mentioned before, even if they love listening to me, but like classes can be like an hour and a half long. I don't care who you are, even if you're, a keynote speaker who is always, like paid to do this for a living. It's hard to listen to somebody for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I try to use it not to like, because I don't feel like talking. I could say the same stuff, but it's good to have that variety. The students need variety, a little break. And for those students who might like visuals, there might be something in the video that's particularly well done. So I think it's more not just about saying, oh, I could see this on YouTube, but would you really find that particular video? I kind of curate I go through a lot of videos, find which are the best examples, and then I use those. So I'm not sure that people would just find these on their own.
But it might not be that they're finding them on their own. Like you could give those before class and like have us watch them before them, right? Like having us watch a video
during class.
It seems like we're like you could give this as an assignment later, and then we'll watch it whenever we need to. But
and then you have a discussion in class, and that I think that's more helpful than.
But also, like, there's also students that won't watch a video, and then you need to like get them up to speed of what.
I don't know, Robert. I don't know. All of my students would definitely watch the video.
Oh, wow. You have like the best class ever, right? I wouldn't do any of the assignments, and I would come in and just teacher, teach me. That's the.
I feel like that varies.
On the same page though. When you show it in class, everyone kind of is there, kind of as part of the experience. I think it can help with that too.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned balance, right? Now, obviously, not every lecture you're going to show videos. So it depends on the balance. It depends how effective it is those videos are. So it does matter, though, in a sense. Like, so now that you understand, so before the semester, I guess when you prep your lessons plan, do you prep different ways of how you're going to encounter certain, because now you have that, that 10-year experience, right? The way you prep your lesson plans, do you prep for multi-mode learning students in a sense?
Yeah, I've really kind of built out different types of assignments to tap. And it's not just for kicks. I'm like now does multimodal learning increase their likelihood of grabbing on, to the material? Probably, yes. Yeah. But I also have a different reason for doing it. Like you hear some students say, oh, they're not good test takers, right? You have plenty of the students that, or they'd rather do, a presentation. Well, I always keep the end in mind of being on the workforce, in the future. What is a job going to ask you to do in the future? How will you be tested on your skills in the future? Yeah. And I try to, especially in flat organizations that have lots of people doing lots of different tasks, you might have to do analysis. You might have to do a lot of writing. You might have to give a presentation. You might have to have really great, people skills. So I want to kind of help build those skills now when you're going to be asked to perform that variety of skills later. So I'm really thinking about real world kind of relevance for this and teaching in all of those different ways and testing them in those ways as well.
So I guess when did you realize you had to do that? I just wanted that kind of mindset. I mean, obviously when you start your learning and teaching, right? Year one, something like that, not year two, like what, I guess towards what year, I should be doing this versus I should be doing that in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that journey is a little bit different as you get more experience, obviously. So
for sure. And I would say, that kind of, I don't know if there is a light bulb moment, but I think it's really been in the last like 4 or 5 years. I'm like, the students are different. And not in a bad way, just what your circumstances were growing up. What media were you learning from? How do you spend your time? These might lend towards certain preferences. So I would say I really started to kind of build my more interactive and experiential type stuff. Maybe starting around 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, do you?
I found a big difference. Like, students just get really excited about certain things.
So, do you experiment with students? I'm just curious. Like, do you do?
What do you mean, like experiment?
Like,
it's all one big experiment, Mike.
It is all one experiment. It really is. Like, I'm pretty sure some of my professors in college have experimented their teaching style on a group of students, slightly different on another group of students. I can tell you this like almost for a fact. Okay, just because I asked them, hey, so-and-so, taught this like this. Did you guys learn it this way too? Or I asked them, like, okay, did you guys go over the same lesson today? Oh, no, he did some kind of experiments, but taught the same thing. I'm like, wait, he did an experiment in a class live versus just lecture in our class, but teaching the same exact topic.
That's interesting. No, I generally, I don't like experiment. Like, oh, in one class, I'm going to do just lecture. And in the other class, I'm going to do just.
Well, because he made it cater because different personality of the class.
Yeah. So. What I would say is just like a comedian tests new jokes, like in their test, like you want to find out what works. Yeah. You might test new material. You might see like, hey, this video didn't jive the way that I thought, people would respond to it. So maybe I need to modify it. Maybe I need to change it out. Maybe that assignment or in-class activity didn't have the impact that I thought it was going to. So you do tweak things, but you're not like, I'm not actively experimenting like, haha, you guys are going to get this and you guys are going to get this. It's not like, I want the students to have a good experience. And so from semester to semester, you're like, okay, well, I might change things a little bit, but it's more just that learning and refining process. That's why I said you're always adapting. There's never a course that will just be perfect left alone. It'll be good for the next 10 years. That is done. That's not gonna, be the case.
It's not gonna fly. You're not gonna fly by with that.
It's probably those weed out classes that they have at UF where they could actually do these experiments if they wanted to, because they're supposed to be hard anyways, and then they have like huge classes, so they're like, oh yeah, these 300 kids are gonna get this experiment. They're gonna be class A. This class B is gonna get their own thing.
All right. So for me, it was my programming class. I'm telling you this right now. Like, I feel like my programming class for C++, so most engineers take that during this either late freshman year or early sophomore year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, we were all taking the same exact professor for C++, and we were all doing the same projects, but then we're like, hey, I didn't learn this way. But like, we were asking, like, hey, how'd you learn how to code that? Oh, no, he showed us visually how to do that. Like, what do you mean? He told us we go figure it out. I'm like, what? So like some class we're getting a little bit more advantage of certain things because I don't know. That's why I realized, okay, maybe this guy's really experimenting how teaching different.
Yeah, you don't want students to get like a completely different experience.
That's true.
Or feel like they got gypped out of something. So like, and what if like there was one student who didn't like for the majority of the class it worked, but for a couple students like they would have done better in a different class. So I try to be even.
Well, it made my experience a little bit harder because I already sucked at programming already, and so I was like, okay, you know what? I guess I figured it out on my own. So the only way to figure it out on my own is by asking people, hey, how'd you guys do this? Oh, this is how you learned it. Okay, so I learned it from others, right, instead of from the class. So I stopped showing the class already.
At the beginning of the class, at the first day of class, he's like, don't talk to the other class. we're good. That's what he should have done, so that his experiment didn't blend together.
The instructor told you not to talk to the other.
No,
I'm just joking. That's what he should have done if he wanted to keep the two groups separate and actually perform this experiment correctly.
Right? Control your groups. Yeah. No, but I do think yes, there are different quote unquote learning styles you can say, but I feel like it's not just one style. Like you mentioned before, different personality prefer a different way of learning, and I do see, especially like now that we have, new generations, like you said, circumstances is different, right? They probably may be more glued to the screen. They have more spare time to do certain things. Some people may just learn more. We need more detail than learning, because while our parents' learning generation was different because they only had certain limited time, to go to school and then had to go worry about work. While on our generation, we may have struggled a little bit as well, but not as bad as our parents. So like every generation is definitely different for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, I guess one of the things that did bother me in the video is that they didn't range the demographic age either on that. I did notice that. Like they didn't ask an older couple or a younger, in a sense. Like no, they try to stay within that little, that little age range too, though. So,
yeah. I mean, it's also possible that they sampled more people than they actually had in the video. So like who actually made it into the video, we don't know.
That's true.
Whether that's representative of everyone that they talk to. So it's just really hard to get a feel for the kind of, research, the methodology.
Did you laugh when you saw the video? I'm just curious. Your reaction was, did you laugh at the end? Like, I'm curious. What is your result when you saw the video afterward?
I was a little like, is there like a particular ending to the video, do you mean, or just on the whole?
It's a whole overall.
Oh, I was a little bit surprised that, research hasn't kind of supported it to any degree. But again, like I said, it's not my area of research. But, yeah, I feel like preference does still exist.
Oh, of course, 100% sure.
So
yeah, for me, when I watched it, I was like, this kind of makes sense, right? Like I don't know, it makes sense that it's not just for specific learning styles, and you're way more like you might prefer one learning style over another, but I feel like in every case, I've seen like once you start doing something like a kinesthetic learning, it seems like it's putting more of these styles together, and so you're learning on different modes as well. Yeah. So I don't know, it felt like it could be true. That's why we brought this up on the podcast. We're like, it's possible. This could work.
I did like when one of the people in the video said that they were like building a story with all the different kind of objects that they saw. That's something that I kind of do to try to like reduce the number of things. It's called chunking in psychology. Is you try, like, we can only learn so many chunks of information. I think it's plus 7 plus or minus 2 or something like that is the average person's kind of a number of chunks that they can learn. So if you build all of those, like a penguin and eyeball or whatever, you know, like the spider, if you can all build that into one story, then you're chunking, you're remembering one story. And now all the details kind of fit in, and it makes it cognitively easier to wrap your mind around. So when students use mnemonic devices, that's very similar.
Yeah.
Oh, I see that.
I feel like there should be more of that type of that should be taught, like how to create those in your own mind, rather than like right now we don't get taught how to do that.
Well, so actually that leads to my final question in a sense. Like, I do wish that if I were to take one class in middle school or high school, is how to study and how to learn.
That's a great idea.
Think about it, like learning 101, like literally, like, because at the end of the day, I did not find my learning style until I was by the time I finished college. Let's just be honest. And so I adapt. In high school, and some people find it during high school. Some people find it during middle school. Some people just find it later, right? And I try different style. Like for me, like I struggle with memory stuff. Like, just some people are just really good at just memorizing stuff. Read it, they'll memorize it, right? I'm very good at visual. If I can see something, I can remember everything visually, and then I can recall it. But when it comes to like actually like, hey, let me memorize this essay, word by word, blah blah blah. But, like I do, like I struggle in like memorizing a speech or a sense. But if I can see like a picture of an image of that pie, I can tell you like, oh, this is what it is. So reading this other book I was telling you about, the Moonwalking with Einstein, shows a kind of different memory technique. And I think you brought this up in a sense, chunking it. That's what they do, this PAS builder memory test. They chunk it in a sense of, hey, in this room number 1, I go walking, I can see this table. This table is tied to something else, and it's tied to some material. Like, you're chunking it room by room by room. And that, for me, that helped me recall a lot of things. And so now when I try to learn, like when I try to learn a certain topic, I try to chunk it, like you said, and then I can recall that later on, and it's definitely helpful. But I do wish, I wish I learned this in high school.
Yeah. I think one other tip that is really good for students is if they can make the material personally relevant, because we are all experts on ourselves. If like, you're not going to forget it if it has a direct kind of relevance
impact to you.
Yeah. So if you can find some even loose tie of, remembering it as with you as a reference point, you're going to be more likely to recall it than if you think it's some static piece of irrelevant information. We don't have time to learn irrelevant things that don't
matter. Everything is irrelevant to a certain point, but but it's good to learn some basic stuff to build that foundation. That's what it is.
Everything's irrelevant at a certain point. I think that's the quote of the episode. I like that.
But if you think about it, okay, when was the last time you used Pythagorean theorem?
Yesterday.
Get out of here!
Shut up! I had to figure out how long this angle was. Okay. No, I totally
about more efficient walking routes. But yes, that's a loose application of it. Not.
I think I also, my ideas on what my learning style has changed as I've grown up as well. So that's like when I was younger, like you said, you could memorize stuff. When I was younger, my mom taught me like when I was going through elementary school and all that stuff. Like, I memorized everything. I went to like the National Spelling Bee just memorizing. Really? Like how to spell words, right? Cool. So like it's just like memorizing, but it takes forever, right? So like nowadays I say I can't remember stuff like that because I don't have the time to sit there and just like flashcard through everything that I need to memorize, right? And it takes so
You gotta
much
put in the
time.
work, man. You know, like Corinne said, put in the work.
Something like biology, where I hate biology because the whole thing to me is memorization. In school, like school of biology is just memorization because they don't teach you how everything connects and how one thing works towards another. So that whole part of biology is like, oh, it's all memorization. Biology 1, 2, 3 is all memorization. So I couldn't do that, but now when I think about it, I do everything much more kinesthetically, where if I can apply stuff and do it, like I can learn that easier. And so like from going from when I was younger to now, I feel like my style has, maybe it's not actually changed, but like the way I think about how I learn has changed.
So I feel like with biology for me, okay, the reason why I'm talking about this biology is because for me, that was like one of my favorite subjects in high school because I was taught differently to me, right? So it's literally taught the way of a car engine works, and that tied it to like an engineering thing for me, right? And so it's tied to specifically what certain part of the cell did, and then so therefore you gotta understand what that meant in order to how to connect to the next thing, and then the next thing, and how to build the whole thing. Like literally, like so the way she taught it was relatable from a grand scheme of picture, and then how she was able to apply that to like real life stuff in a sense. Example that's what she did. So it gave me that visual to learn. So I didn't have to worry about memorizing it. I'm like, oh, okay, so now I can tie this back. This is what that thing does.
And as much as I say and as much as I say I don't memorize well, like when it comes to math, I learn the basics. And the basics of math is all memorization, like how these
that's true. You have
how these things. Yeah. So like I learned that very fast, but then when you go to like higher levels of math, everything is I could just sit there and just go from what the basics that I know and extrapolate into what the higher level math is. Yeah. Whereas I think biology I just learned late, or like I don't know, I didn't learn that basics and I just hated it because I'm like I'm still learning the stuff that to get to the point where you can extrapolate, right? And that's
well, also you probably had different teaching styles too as well to you, right? So like you said, they probably just thought, hey, go memorize this, good luck with the test.
Yeah. Well, and like for intro chemistry, I rock that, like balancing equations, doing all these.
I love it too. So do I. I love balancing equations. Yeah.
But dude, when we moved to OChem and the like, and especially Orgo? Those 3D models,
Orgo's amazing.
I'm not a spatial person. I was like, I can't. Like,
I loved Orgo Chem.
I love Orgo 1 and 2. Because of that visual basic. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome.
I crushed both of those classes.
Yeah. So do I. Yeah.
I just like Gen Chem. But like I learned I was not a spatial person, and I was like, this makes perfect sense because I get lost in like multi-level parking garages. Like I'm just not a spatial person. Like multi-level parking garages. My knowledge does not translate on 3D levels. Like,
how about 4D levels, huh?
Oh, probably even more difficult. So yeah, but it really is interesting. I know that I have strengths and I have weaknesses, and learning what are your strengths in terms of, and more just like career advice of like whether you can align what your strengths are and what different kind of formats you're likely to be kind of tested in or needing to perform in is one of the big kind of like unlocking the box of success. It's really and it really, I feel like, takes more initiative to test out these different things. What strategies do work for me? Like, oh, flashcards didn't work. Well, that doesn't mean you're dumb because flashcards didn't work for you. You need to try something else. So like you said about having a class that like, how do I learn, to realize that there isn't just a one way. And if it doesn't work, that you conclude that it's not the subject for you, or that you make conclusions about like whether you should like move on in school, like to a higher level. It's about kind of finding those preferences.
So I 100% agree with you, because the way, for example, like Orgo, right? For me, I didn't memorize it by flashcards. I just applied it. I literally visually learned that. And for me, it just stuck to me. And listen, I took Orgo, it was an elective. I didn't have to take Orgo at all for engineering. I chose it because I was because I actually enjoyed it, and I knew what it was doing.
Yeah.
But eventually I realized, you know what, I'm not gonna do anything with Orgo. So I was like, okay, you know what, I'll let it go.
I transferred out of pharmacy and because of biology, because I was like, I can't figure out this biology stuff, but I still kept taking the orgo classes because I was like, this stuff is it makes sense to me. It just makes
sense. It makes sense. Yeah, it just makes sense.
Nope. That's where I stopped. I was like, no.
Okay, so you mentioned, so just to kind of recap the episode in a sense, right? So from this video itself, okay, there are some like, do you think overall, what would it take to support their statement that they're learning, that it doesn't, the myth of learning styles, like, because right now what they're trying to say that there is not specifically learning style is, you think that video right now alone by itself answers that question?
I think they're saying that the 4 learning styles that everyone knows is not the actual way learning that style. Everyone is split up.
But does it answer the question though? I guess that video does that currently.
You can never prove something to be true. You can only find support for it or fail to find support for it. And so you might, so none of these answers are final. It might just be that you tested something in the same way each time and you tested it the wrong way. So like, what truth is that under these particular circumstances? No, we didn't find support for it. So you just have to be really, like most researchers just say, you just have to be really careful about making a conclusion about that. Now, experiments help when you randomly assign people to different kind of conditions.
Yeah.
But I'd have to see what the research said. So I guess they failed to find consistent support for it.
Do you also there's also a question of like, are we good enough to identify our own, like self-identify our own style?
That's true.
Because say that they, I mean, it might be that they are pigeonholed into 4 groups, right? So like you have to pick one. But like, would we be able to identify this if we're not looking for it, right? Because like a lot of these things, like we were little, they're like, oh yeah, they told me, or like I saw when I was little that this is my style, and then they haven't reassessed it in however long, and maybe it's changed, or they maybe it's the wrong group or something. Like it could be something like that.
Yeah, and obviously they probably show some some resources, what kind of I guess the way why they conducted that way, and I'm sure they probably had some kind of environment. But you're right, you can't fit everything to like a 6-7 minute video in a sense to show that. And I think you've nailed it on the head, where you cannot just come up with a final response in a sense. You could run up to a certain conclusion based on certain scenario in a sense, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a final answer.
Mm-hmm.
So so I guess for me, like if I were to have a kid one day, I would make sure that, hey, I would force him to kind of learn stuff differently in a sense, and then later figure out what fits for them, because my parents kind of forced me one way to, like, hey, go memorize this, go do this.
That's what my parents did too. Like, hey, memorize all this stuff. And when you're little, you have all the time in the world to memorize, and like if you need more time to do it, you can do it. But then when you get older, you're like, this learning style doesn't really work for me.
Well, Robert, actually, I thought it was really funny, like when you mentioned the National Spelling Bee, because I've even seen changes in those, contestants over the years. You see, in terms of when they're trying to think of how to spell the word, they used to be writing it out on their hand. Now you see them typing out, like in terms of muscle memory, how they're doing it. So how they're recalling that information, it was input differently. How they are practicing has changed. So, and that shows kind of the impact of technology. So all of these things are so important. And I think, and like, people are probably aware of like, oh, I think I'm a visual person, but I'm not sure that everyone jumps to the conclusion of like, oh, that means I should study visually. Like it doesn't just carry out into our strategies. It might just be like this knowledge that we have and that we don't do anything about. So I think reminders of like, hey, maybe you should try this, or like you were saying, exposing students or kids to all these different things, really become a problem solver. Say, well, this didn't work. What else is available? What other options are there? And I think that's maybe the most important skill, is like testing, like learning to test all these different things out.
Yeah, I didn't start doing that until college, to be honest with you. Like, and I think that's a little bit too late, as just because I was like, wow, I'm struggling this subject, and I'm struggling this, and that's kind of forced me to, okay, maybe I'm not learning this the right way. And so that's why it forced me to kind of learn stuff. And I think I do wish I've read this book when I was in college, but it came out in like 2012, so it was too late. But but that's the studies has done, has been there for a while already. Like people are just good memorizing stuff. But I really do wish there was like an elective in high school, hey, how to learn or how to study in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
It would have definitely be useful though, for sure. But yeah. So, all right, so we're gonna wrap this episode with, what is one or two advice you can give to new professors or new teachers, like from this, I guess, your experience and from, in a sense, from not only teaching style, but understanding student, because it sounds like your social psychology background and your research has helped you kind of tenfold your teaching style better, and just because you become more subconsciously aware of it versus someone who doesn't have that background study, right? Let's say that they're a professor of math, right? Mathematics, they may, because they never experienced that, that social psychology background. The research is all math related, nothing to do with consumer behavior, things like that. Like it's different, and everyone teaches differently just because of their own, journey. So
yeah. For sure. I mean, I don't, assume I know everything. I'm still learning too. But one piece of advice is, expect the unexpected, be flexible. Gone are the days where you don't have to adapt a course, like you have to be aware of a lot of different considerations. The material itself might be dynamic. Like I teach marketing, COVID, social media have dramatically changed how all of this stuff works. And so you always have to incorporate current things of realizing that the material might not even be the same, like the landscape may have changed. So just really just try to educate yourself about modern kind of theories or practices to be as relevant as possible, and understand that you're never done learning, even as a professor. And kind of again, for me, I just try to make myself accessible to the students. So like I feel like the more you can make yourself available to them, the more you can connect with them, and that rapport can translate well into their kind of educational outcomes.
That's true. I think you can be more attentive as well sometimes, because now they trust you.
Yeah.
So you build that trust relationship, which makes more sense. Yeah.
I think it's important in every I don't know, every career path or whatever that you're in. Like as you get older, like you should continue to grow, and it's not just once you're out of school you're done. Like it's
no, you're not.
As you get older, you learn way more stuff.
We tend to keep comfortable. It happens though, right? You think about it, like we're like, oh, we're comfortable with our job, we're comfortable where we are. Like we tend to be comfortable. That's how it is. It just happens, human nature in a sense. It's not like we want to, I'm going to be stuck here and I'm going to have a fixed mindset. But it's very easy to be comfortable.
Yeah, it's very easy to just be like, I'm good. Like I don't really, no, I'm too lazy. Like we've gotten to a very lazy state in general, but it's so it makes it easy to just be like
coasting.
It just makes it easier to just be like, okay, well, I can live off this.
There's actually like this idea in business of like plateauing, like employee plateauing, and in terms of like what leads to plateauing versus like really trying to improve. It's that kind of like, settling or like resting on your laurels, or like, okay, I'm good. I've put in my, time, there is no resting.
Yeah. That's right. I've seen like people, like when I was working at like Bank of America or whatever, and you would see people that have been there for 30 years, and then they're coming up on their 30 years and they've been at this one job for 20 years. And you're like, wow, this is what it is. It's like we've got to our point and we're just gonna coast from here and just
and it's okay. So you know how you talked about the congruence model, and in a sense in the beginning of you touched base on it a little bit, right? And I had to Google that a little bit, and I heard this before somewhere.
Which model was that?
It was called the Congruence Theory.
Oh, Congruence Theory. Yep.
Yeah. So can you tap into a little bit more, in a sense, I guess the background of that, just because I feel like for those listeners who don't know what that is, just wondering like.
Yeah. So actual congruence theory, like if you want me to get super technical, it actually has a little bit different roots, but it's now talked about in different ways, and it's manifested in different ways in different disciplines. So if you look up congruence theory, it's probably going to talk about our actual self versus our ideal self, which is like Tori Higgins, like model of like it talks about kind of discrepancies between what we want to be versus what we actually are. And things are better for us when we are as we want to be. If my ideal self is like being this rock star and I'm super far from that in reality, I'm going to feel some type of dissonance. Like I'm aware of this discrepancy and it makes me feel bad. But how I was talking about it is a kind of borrowed idea of it in marketing. So again, if you look it up, it might talk more about Tori Higgins' kind of self-identity type theory. But I'm talking about in the marketing sense of matching characteristics, in terms of the impact. So matching learning styles with the, way that it's being tested or something like that. So it's just that when things are more congruent, our brain is easier to wrap our heads around it. It makes more sense than if something is at odds or missing.
I can see that now. So that brings me to my next question, because it sounds like you can tie that to the brand, to the brand personality and how they can relate to that, and then it ties together. Maybe. So yeah, I can see how that's being applicable.
I'm actually doing some congruence research right now in marketing, so on like advertising. So yeah. So yeah, if you look it up in marketing, congruence stuff is going to be a little bit different than how it's talked about in psychology.
Yeah, so I was going to say, because there's a huge difference, I guess, because your background, you probably know that from a psychology standpoint. Now you're applying that differently from a marketing standpoint. Yeah. So it's a slightly, obviously, different definition. Now, the reason why I was bringing that question up is because this kind of ties down into, I guess, relationship, right? You mentioned relationship with your students. And so being available to your students. And I think that builds that, I guess, that relationship. And then that builds up loyalty. You think about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I definitely think that's true. And at the end of the day, it's not even about like loyalty or anything, or like what you're kind of going for. Yeah. For me, it's again just thinking about possibly being a professor that said something that had, whether it's now or in 10 years, it will have made a positive impact on them. And so I just always try, you never know who's looking up to you. That's you true. Never know who might need you, in this capacity of having a role model. So I just try to conduct myself thinking backwards, like assuming that this may be important one day. And so I try to take the steps and make the effort. So that I could be,
So one final question. Do you have a mentor? I'm just curious. Do I
have a mentor?
A role model to look up to? I'm just wondering. I'm just curious.
I have, my graduate advisor, people joke that your graduate advisor never really stops being your advisor. You just always think of them as like, what would, so-and-so do, because they train you. So I think whether you're in regular contact with them, they're in your head. Their voice is in your head.
What would they do?
It sticks. So I feel like I have a permanent mentor, just kind of like how would, my advisor approach it.
And you can hear the voices in their head.
What's that?
You can hear the voices in your head.
Yeah, no, different. But I can think, what would he say? I feel like it's almost weird. I don't have a mentor per se, but I also don't like that concept.
Wait, what do you mean by that? Sorry. Yeah, it's curious.
I think that you can learn from anyone. I don't think you could learn from your student. You could learn from a colleague. Like in terms of, I almost feel like it presupposes a hierarchy of like, this person is more accomplished or a certain age or something like that. I just try to learn from everyone and take good things from each of those. So I feel like everyone's my mentor. And like, it sounds so cheesy, but I really kind of look at it like in that way, rather than putting all of that on one person, So.
Well, I guess for me, my definition of mentor, I don't have one either, just so you know, but I just wish if I was struggling with something, as someone to talk to about and at least get their perspective on it, like that to go person. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I have that in my life.
You can't talk to us, Mike? Come on. Well, what's the problem? You want to lay down on the couch? We got some space here.
There we go. Yeah. But you know what I'm talking about? Like there's certain things that obviously that everyone deals with different relationship, right? But like, especially like, let's say it's career wise, right? And so like, let's say that you want to talk to somebody, like especially it would be nice if someone has already done it in that profession you are, whatever industry you are, like especially in your career, right? You know, teaching, right? Or researching. Do you have somebody like that? Or I'm just curious, like the to-go person?
Yeah, I mean, professionally, I have like at different universities where I've worked, I've had like, again, a supervisor or something, or people that I've worked closely with. I definitely trust those people. You can run things by them. My mom, of course, is like, you know, just like life stuff or just like for perspective, people who know you well. So I think, yeah, I don't know if there's one person. I think it really depends on the
I guess my mom, for personal stuff, I do talk to her about stuff like that too, I guess. But there's only certain life stuff. Like for example, if I tell my mom I'm quitting my job, she's like, what the hell are you doing with your life? You know? So I can't talk to her about that. So it's kind of like, you know,
maybe mom, that's the motivation you need. What the hell are you doing, Mike? Get a job that you like, do your stuff, get on with it. Yeah, maybe that's what you need. Yeah, kicking the ass.
Probably right. Wait, do you have a mentor you can go to just ask any questions?
No, I have a lot of friends that I talk to, and my friends are in a different, I mean, I have a lot of friends in different areas of their life too. So
that's true. Yes,
it's I usually get perspective, try to get perspectives from multiple people, and then work from there. Probably not the most efficient way. Probably if I had a mentor, they could be like, all right, maybe this is the way to go. But I don't know. Some of the people that have gone through what that are like successful now, like they things have changed, right? Our world has changed. There's a lot more going on, or I don't know, maybe a lot less going on, where like they just things are different, right? And so they might not have the same perspective as of like what is the most effective way to do things. That's whereas true. They're like, oh, when I was doing it, this is how it worked. So
it might have worked for them, not for you.
Yeah, it might have worked for them, but like nowadays things have changed and like that wouldn't work anymore.
You know? So what if I don't have anybody I can ask a question, I go to Reddit and I put a question in it and people respond, which is nice.
Oh, wow.
And so people were like literally like special career stuff, people respond like really good.
You should go to Blind. Blind is really good for like
what's Blind?
Blind is like a anonymous chat where like people go in and just ask questions, and like the people who are responding are anonymous in a sense where like you don't have to tell them your name and stuff, but they tell you is like where you're working, and it's very work focused on that.
Oh, it's very work focused. Okay.
But you get like I feel like it's a lot more tech people do it because like they talk about like I got this job offer. Is this a good job offer? How do I negotiate?
That would be nice. That's what I'm trying to say. Like career related, I can't ask it to my parents.
Yeah. So like Blind is like a good app for that. You also get some ruthless stuff because people are anonymous. But like there are good things on there, and people there's a good conversations.
Well, it's the same thing with Reddit in a sense, right? You can see like some people have got comment. They've been doing this for a while. You can see the past posts, what they commented, right? And they build reputation on answering questions, you know? And so, but I guess, and I never heard that before, but is that an app or is that a
Blind app, yeah.
Okay.
You have to sign up with your work email.
Oh, what if you're not working?
I mean, that's too bad. It's only for people who work, all right? Get a job. I guess that's what Blind's trying to get you to do. Get a job.
Right? All right. You know, I mean, I just want to bring that up just because I feel like at some point in our life, like you mentioned, like there may not be one or two people that you go to, I guess. Like, but I mean, obviously for you, like you have your professional network and your personal as well. You can pick stuff up from here and there, and I think everybody's have different circumstances. I know somebody who literally has a mentor directly. He can just go to anything, anything. So it's kind of nice sometimes, right? And it's having that accessibility, like you said.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not anti one mentor. But when I said like in terms of I don't like love the concept or
I know you're talking though.
I more meant like it's awesome if you have a mentor and fantastic. But in terms of how you define it, like
it's kind of weird. I know what you're saying.
It's just I try to learn from everyone, or it's not like only if the mentor approves and everyone else's opinion doesn't matter, or nobody else could provide value. So I try to like you know, find value wherever it might be, whether it's in, you know, a specific person or other people.
And that's relevant to yourself and it's good for you. That's the thing.
Yeah. Even that, we have different styles, you know, of like whether just one person who we can ask anything versus it's like having like friends, like, oh, do you have one best friend who you can talk to about anything? Or do you have different friends for different activities? I have the friend who likes sports, who I can go to sporting activities with. I like the friend who I can go to concerts with, or just have a serious book discussion. Are they all in one, or are they spread out across multiple people?
That's true. You know who actually said a good thing about this? I think Bruce Lee. He kind of, you know, his style is learning. Like he just takes the best out of every single part of it. That's what he does. Yeah. And so, you know, be like water, right? Remember?
Be like water. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna wrap this episode up with our funny session and our rant. So Robert, you want to kick us off with our funny extra MHE session today?
Yeah, I have. So there was a point in time when we did this podcast where I was sending Amazon reviews that were funny.
Oh man, are you back to those again?
And I found another one.
There we
go. So this one is uranium ore.
Okay.
Yeah. So very radioactive content, and you go to the comments and they're just the reviews are just hilarious. And the first review is great for making things glow. I can see my organs now if I pull my sheets over my head.
Robert, did you send the link? Did you send the link over yet?
Oh, I sent it over in our chat.
I did. I opened it in another screen.
Yeah.
What? How do they even have this available?
For $40, you can get uranium ore.
No, but think about this. 1,300 people bought this.
No, it's 1,300 people reviewed it.
Oh, reviewed it, whatever. But I mean, okay, we know at least minimum 1,300 people bought this. How about that?
I mean, 74% gave 5-star reviews.
Yeah, these are great. Like, how is this a thing you can buy? But also, people like to review it, and they're saying it's great.
Oh my God, some of these images. I'm reading this right now. I'm looking at these images.
Yeah,
that is hilarious. Robert, how did you encounter this? Were you trying to buy some?
Hey, I'm not gonna talk about what I do in my free time, but some of these are kind of crazy. It's really,
I got a beautiful sample of uranium ore when it's tested on my personal, I can't pronounce that word, Gallagher Merler counter. It was right on as advertised at the CPM certification. The ore itself is a beautiful mineral with many colors and a beautiful crystalline shine. Wow, that's very descriptive.
Oh my
so
God.
This, like, talking about skewed data,
yeah,
all the people who died using this didn't get to leave a customer review. So that's all I'm saying.
All right, I mean, this is skewed a little bit, but
I do have some. You do have some 2 stars and 1 star.
Yeah.
Actually,
good range.
Actually, hang on. Let me read the 1 star for you. A teeny little bit scrappy sigh for a geosample, smiley face. 1 star. Okay. All right. That makes no sense at all, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there you go. Uranium, guys. Like, I wouldn't suggest this.
I'm not about to add that to my Amazon
shopping list.
You're not gonna add this to your cart? All right. Well,
remove from cart.
Well, it was in your cart, and now you're removing it because of the reviews.
All right. So I have something little meme from Reddit. It kind of relates to my real life dating life to a certain degree. And so I have sent that over to the chat. And so pretty much it's an image. It's a quadrant, first of all. And the title's Online Dating Fail. So is this person, looking at the phone for online dating. Okay. And in person, decided to swipe right on the person. And then once they meet on the person and that one person that has holding the phone is like, hey, you don't look like your profile picture. And it's pretty much that person's pixelated, and so they use Mario as an example.
Yeah. So what it is on the screen is on Tinder app or whatever app it is. It shows Mario, 25 years old, founder of Mario Brothers Inc. 2 miles away. Yeah, and then she's like, "You don't look like your picture," and it's just the
Mario pixelated,
the 8-bit version of Mario. This is great.
It is a failure because I've definitely encountered some similar situation like this online dating for sure.
You've dated a pixelated girl,
right? Yeah, of
that
course,
is crazy.
She was very square, let me tell you.
At least he brought a flower.
That's true.
How sweet. That's hilarious. Yeah.
And
Things are not described as they are.
Well, also the things that though that the fact that she let him go to his house to pick her up. That's
right. That's crazy too.
Looking at the wrong things there.
Yeah. But did you see the title though? It says professional pipe layer.
Yeah.
Professional pipe layer. Oh my god.
Yeah. I love that.
That is such a good thing. I was like,
well, it's basically classic false advertising. So
right.
Anyway, I think it's sweet, like you said, that you brought the flowers. So that's what I would focus on.
All right. So Corinne, do you have anything to share, story, anything with us?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Nothing that could compete with that. So we'll just
no worries, it's fine. So we're gonna end our episode with the rant. So my rant is, I'm not sure if they ran this last time in the last podcast, Robert. Someone hit my car in the parking lot and left a dent in my car.
That
you did
talk about this.
Yeah, right. So okay. So now it's a continuation of the rant. So it's the same rant. Okay, so this happened in Miami in a parking lot. Background, you sure you know. Someone literally hit my side of my car on the right hand side of my Toyota, and my fender and my side fender, so my bumper and my side fender just got dented, and no one let them know. Nothing happened. So the Starbucks had a camera, but they didn't want to relieve it and anything like that at all. Like, you know, so a month has gone by, and I went to the dealership to get a price quote, you know, to see how much it costs to fix it. It cost $2,000. I went to another body work to get a price quote, but it cost $2,000. I'm like, are you kidding me? So then a week later, I went back to the same dealership and asked another price quote for different people. I'm like, I'm wondering if this is kind of biased. $1,700. I'm like, okay, it's $300 less. So I go to another dealership. I ask for another quote, $1,700. Okay, so $1,700 at least getting consistency now, right? So then I go back to the original dealership. I got my $1,700 quote, and I ask him, hey, can you fix this? And he's like, well, you came a week late. That quote expired. We had to read the quote. I'm like, are you kidding me? That quote expired. Re-quoted it for $2,200. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wait, did you show him the other
I showed
ones?
him the original quote. And I was like, well, it's an old quote, you know. So like, because apparently there's a backlog of there's a high demand of repaired cars right now, and there's a low inventory supply of materials. But in a week,
it's too expensive to get a new car.
Well, you can't get a new car.
No, not for $2,200.
Yeah.
No, nowadays cars are very expensive.
Their cars instead of getting a new one.
So used car and a new cars are very expensive right now because of the inventory situation, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I'm like, how does it make a difference of a week? So I'm gonna wait until another week, maybe go back and just see if I can get it for $1,700.
Or it'll be $2,500.
That's just like when you go on a website like to get your airfare, and by the time you've gone through the entire process, it's like, well, the price has actually increased since you began your session. Do you still want to purchase it? And you're like,
they get you like that.
You gotta lock that in, lock that price in.
Yeah. I don't know.
Wait, you didn't show him the other people's
I showed him the original quote. I literally was here.
No, but like you went to other places and got other quotes.
Yeah.
You didn't show them those quotes?
I showed them that quote. I showed them their own quote for them
and they were like, no, we're not going to match. We're just going to increase.
Well, it's not even that. They said like, well, the price increased because of material costs. That's what they said.
I mean, I guess
they know
can
that
charge
you
whatever.
Need it though. They know
I needed it. It's the thing.
You've displayed interest, and now they want to leverage that.
Yeah, I don't know. I was so mad. Though. I was like, I wanted those points. I was like, what the hell? I was like,
yeah.
Sorry, I left my lights on. Oh, my lights. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my continuation of my rant in a sense. I was like, man, I might just leave this dent here. I mean, sure, I claim insurance at this point right now. So in my mind, I was like, I don't know.
It's gonna be a year later, and he's gonna have an update and be like, you know what? Now they say it's $6,000, and it's just inflation is just crazy right now.
Well, I mean, I at this point, it's just that I'm very close to trying to make a claim on my own insurance. It's not my fault, but then they're probably gonna jack my rate up though.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens.
I don't know. But anyway. All right. So no worries. So what's your rant, Robert?
My rant is so I went on Instagram for the first time in a long time, and I checked my notifications, and they started sending me these things where they're like, you might know this person on Instagram, follow them.
Oh, nice.
No, that's not nice. I don't care who these random people are. Like, why are you sending these to me as notifications? Like, I don't want. This is why I got out of. I deleted Facebook off of my phone. It's because they started sending me like, oh, this person posted something on Facebook, or like I don't care. Like, this has nothing to do with me. Why are you giving me this information? I don't want to see it. I might delete Instagram. This is. I'm getting upset.
He's trying to. I mean, Instagram's trying to connect you. You could be. You find your future wife.
I know they're trying to get me back to log in, and they've sent me multiple emails of like, "Oh, we see you've had a hard time logging in when I didn't, and I just haven't logged in." And then they're like, "You can log in this way." And now they're sending this like, "You should follow this person because you might know them." And like, I have my friends. And if I want to follow someone, I'll follow them. I don't need you to give me any suggestions. If I can't figure out how to turn off this, I'm just going to delete the app. I couldn't figure out how to turn off the Facebook one. That's why I deleted it.
I'm sure there is though some kind of settings for that.
Probably. Hopefully by now. But like, I don't know. It's Facebook. You never know.
That's true.
Well, actually, like you make a good point, and maybe I'll kind of continue the rant, is just like, when they start to manipulate you, like, we miss you, come back, like they're trying to pull at your emotions to change your behavior. And that's kind of like the basis of the social dilemma, right? Is like, at what point does a platform move from a tool to something that controls or changes how we act or interact? I think I have an issue with.
There's another podcast episode there, right there. That's a good topic. Yeah.
Just in terms of like, just let me make my choices. Like when a platform starts trying to influence your choices, you have to start asking, is it good for me? Is it good for me? Or is it just good for them?
I see what you're saying, because now you can't. So for me, sometimes I can't tell the difference between an advertising or actual real content.
Yeah.
That's
you can't tell. Oh.
Sometimes it's that good. Sometimes unless you scroll down,
it's not really good.
Yeah. Unless you scroll down and then you see the tiny little words that says sponsored by.
Yes. Or
Those Instagram ads get me every time. They're so good. Like,
they're really good.
That's also why I haven't logged on to Instagram. It's because you scroll through and I click on all the ads. Like I was like, oh, this is. They got me. They got me.
How much? Okay. Have you bought stuff off Instagram ads? I'm just curious.
I have. I bought a couple things off Instagram ads. They're good. They know exactly what you like.
I've done the same. I definitely have caved in one of the two items for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I almost bought a 3D printer too one time. But
wow.
Although those would be probably pretty cool, but I would not buy it through an ad. The thing about reaching people, like I would want to be in person, talk to a salesperson, get more detail.
Well, so they were on Shark Tank, and I watched, and then that linked me to a Shark Tank video, and then that almost converted me. Let me tell you.
Gotcha.
Nowadays, I see the ads, and then I go straight to AliExpress and see what the actual price is that they're buying. Because a lot of it's drop shipping stuff where they're just like, oh, we're gonna.
That's true.
Like they're putting ads up, and then they go to AliExpress and buy it, and then send it to you.
Yeah.
So now I go straight to AliExpress as soon as I see something on the ads, and it's.
I don't know. It's just pretty funny though. Like it's effective. It really is. Especially now with TikTok.
Their ads are really good.
It's
crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, Corinne, so how about your rant?
I mean, that was kind of like similar to what Robert was saying, but I think my rant would be like I talk about this all the time. Everyone is trying to now be everything. Like if you're a celebrity now, you come out with a wine, or now I'm gonna like expand my personal brand, and at the end of the day, everyone's trying to be everything. There's a term that I heard recently, to become a multi-hyphenate. Like I'm an activist and model and professor and blah blah blah. Like I'm trying to be all these things, and people are taking their personal brand and really stretching it to be like, well, now that I'm good in this one area, now I'm going to expand my business. And I just think it's like, I don't know what level of contribution you're bringing to this, probably beyond your name. And maybe you tested some things out, but like, are you a wine expert? So to me, it's a little bit frustrating that
I can see that, because
like, what is the quality of your product compared to somebody who's been doing this for a lot longer? And so like same with fast food chains, like, well, now everyone wants to be a breakfast place, and now everyone's going to offer plant-based stuff. It's okay to have a niche market. It's okay to not appeal to everyone, but everyone's trying to grab the entire market. And to me, that's frustrating, because I feel like
maybe
they're
they
diluting.
see success in others. They think they could do it themselves, and they're missing out opportunity costs, perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So
And
anyway,
it is frustrating
that's
though.
my
You're
rant.
right. I can see that being frustrating because I remember vividly, like, was it Taco Bell? No, it was Taco Bell. Yeah. So I remember working for Taco Bell before when I was in high school, and they never served breakfast. Never did.
Yeah.
And then they suddenly started serving breakfast during the time I was working. They're like, "Oh, Michael, you got to work morning shifts now because you're doing breakfast." I'm like, "No, screw this. I'm not waking up at 5:30 in the morning to just serve breakfast in the morning for Taco Bell." But and their breakfast is not even that good. But they did it because they wanted to cater the people.
They gotta expand into different markets.
The different markets,
get more market share.
Yeah. Well, they saw Wendy's doing it. That's what happened, right? They saw Wendy's doing it.
That's why all these like fried chicken sandwiches that happen.
It's everywhere now.
Like
chicken wars.
Like it's just chicken.
They saw Popeye. They saw Popeye doing really well. Them advertising the market, and then Funny thing is that people don't know that. Guess Burger King bought Popeye, and that's the reason why Popeye became big. People didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so now this is why you see BK selling the same chicken sandwich.
Oh, it's the exact same chicken sandwich.
It's similar, supposedly, but there's different tastes because Popeye's Cajun taste, so therefore they had to do the Cajun style there, and so
it's gonna have more bite to it.
Correct. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I tried it. It's good, but
I have yet to try it. It was like I think the only time I went by a Popeyes was like at the beginning when it was all sold out, and I just haven't been near one really since. Yeah. So I think still yet to be determined.
I think still Chick-fil-A is the best out of all of them.
Chick-fil-A still tastes good. The crunchiness is in Popeye for sure. That nice texture crunchiness. I agree. Like the juiciness in Popeye is there too, also because they don't overdo it, which is nice. Chick-fil-A is very consistent, but the taste is definitely better.
Oh, y'all, winner in my book, Publix fried chicken.
Oh yeah, the chicken tenders.
So good. So good.
Chicken tenders amazing. You can't get that in California though.
Chicken tenders, they're pieces of like fried chicken, like.
Yeah, fried chicken at Publix.
As anything.
You can't get that in California. I'm sure you miss it.
Yeah,
I miss it. I miss their subs. I miss their chicken. I miss Publix.
Yeah, see the experience. See, they try to do everything though too. See.
There you go.
Exactly.
They got you.
Okay, speaking of Publix, when you come back to Orlando next time, they you know how Lucky's Market had that wine drink experience.
Yes.
Publix opened the first store in Soto to do the same exact thing. They have a bar with a coffee shop in it now. It used to be the old Lucky's Market.
Wow.
Yeah.
So excited.
But they stole Lucky's Market's model now.
Wow.
So
really interesting. But they do everything else so well. Like their pastries and everything are so good as well. So
yeah, it's a one-stop shop, right? Like I said, like Amazon, right? Expanding everywhere. But you're talking about, I feel like you were talking about more of a personal brand in a sense. Like people grew it with one specific thing for their own personal brand, and they try to reach out just because they can do it because they have the audience to do it.
Yeah. So. And a lot of people who will follow whatever these influencers are doing. But yeah, so I just don't know what the quality is for these personal brand extensions.
Yeah.
Compared to like, the effort that they're putting in their original kind of, area and how
they just buy a company and then just up to did they just buy a company or did you just private label something, right? Versus actually doing something,
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like Dwayne Wade, he did a private label as a winery. Did he buy a winery? Did he actually?
No, I did a private label and it wasn't very good. So
yeah, I know you tried it. That's why I brought that up.
It's not very good.
All right. Well, Corinne, thanks for your time today. I appreciate it. We'll definitely invite you back.
It was really fun chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
No, thanks for sharing your experience. I think we definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure we'll have you back on for other topics as well. But meanwhile, folks, if you have any, opinion, questions, comments, let us know. I mean, we'd like to hear from what kind of learning styles, I guess, you think you are, and then how do you adapt to how you learn. If you're a professor or teacher, share your experience with us. Leave the comment below. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, please, make sure you leave a review and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button below and subscribe. Please.
Yeah.
Subscribe,
Yeah, and if you want to watch all of our videos, they're all on our website, www.gfOThoughts.com.
Yeah. please, again, we'd love to hear from you. And until next time, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Take it easy.
Right. Peace, guys.
Everyone, thanks, Corinne.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Gluten-Free Organic Thoughts podcast. As always, we appreciate you. If you are watching us on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this episode, and leave us a comment. If you are listening to us, please leave us your honest review on your preferred podcast listening platform. And as always, you can find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GFOThoughts. Drop a comment and give us some feedback. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, see you then.